Hi friends, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We're headed out to the garden for a little chat. I want to share a decision that I've made that is going to significantly impact the way that we grow food from this point on. I hear you girls, it's not time to eat yet. I'll be there in a minute. My goats are being loud, sorry about that. But we have been dealing with an issue in the garden, and it has just led to a decision that changes how we grow food from this point forward. But in order to share that with y'all and for y'all to be able to see what's been going on, we need to travel back in time a bit so you can see for yourself. Hey friends, yesterday morning I came out to do my normal garden walk and found just devastation in the garden. And this morning I came out again, and this time it's more and worse. So I wanted to talk about it, just the realities of gardening and how we can be resilient and how we can move to plan B and plan C and plan D when needed. So let me show you what happened and let's talk about it. I'm going to bring you over to my onion garden, but first there's all these holes and divots. That is indicative of something like an armadillo or a raccoon. Chickens aren't going to do that. Chickens are only going to scratch and fling dirt. But if you don't have free-ranging chickens, then that's not even applicable to you. But a lot of people do deal with wildlife. So I just wanted to show you some signs that you can look for. If you have holes and divots, you're looking at a four-legged critter, something like an armadillo or a raccoon or something similar. But let me show you all my onions. The entire row is dug up. And what they did was, they're not looking for plants to eat. What they're doing is they want what's ever in the dirt, whether that be worms or insects. And what they do is, I'm going to get emotional. It is hard to see a whole lot of work just completely trashed. And of course, as gardeners, I mean, we look forward to the harvest. That's like the whole point of planting, right? Is to feed our family with the harvest. And this is like 6 months of onions for us. But not all is lost. I mean, I can absolutely still harvest these. They're going to be too little to get like a good sized onion. This is about the size that most of them are right now. So that's obviously not something that I'm really going to want to string up and cure and, use. But what I can do is I can use these for my canning projects that need chopped up onions. Since they're small, I can still benefit from chopped and minced onions in things like salsa and chow chow, relishes, stuff like that. But let me just walk down this row, and you can see how they have dug up things. And when something is uprooted but not chewed on, that's a sign that it's a four-legged critter, like a possum, armadillo, raccoon, something like that, because they're not interested in the green part. They're not interested in eating, the plant itself. They're just digging up the soil. Oh, look, I've got a few survivors. Praise the Lord for that. Unfortunately, this is not the only area that got messed up. Let me walk you over here to the trellis tunnel. So just to give you a quick view, if you all are been with us before, then you recognize this trellis tunnel. I have cucumbers, a zucchini rampicante, and pole beans on most of these. It looks like I lost most of the green beans. I'll show you here. You can see how, once again, they're just digging up the soil and flinging. The plants are almost completely uprooted. It looks like I might have one or two that might make it. So after I film this video, I'm going to go through and I'm going to just do my best to see what might survive. Like, this one's completely uprooted, but
it might, see that it has a really good root system. I might be able to put that back in the ground, and I'm gonna push the dirt like all the way up as high on the stem as I can. So I'm probably gonna push dirt, kind of like hill them, like create a little hill around them, push dirt all the way to where you see my fingers. That's what I'm gonna try to do to save some. Lost some cucumbers too, but as you can see, I still have some. They dug up that one and did a big old hole here. I've got several divots all through there. I've got a couple of cucumbers down there that probably won't make it. So the green beans, I'm not sure what's going on here. They dug up here, and you can see there's a couple that are falling and that are dying, and the problem is a lot of these crops don't like their root systems disturbed, but that's traditional wisdom. I'm going to say wisdom because it's wise that certain plants don't like their root disturbed, but at the same time, we have to experiment in our own gardens, in our own land, with our own soil to see what works. And even though there's a whole lot of root disturbance here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to try to hill up things, and we'll see what we can save. I lost I had reseeded all of this whole trellis here with cucumbers. The seedlings were only about maybe 2 inches tall, but I lost all of those. They've uprooted all of those. That one's probably not going to make it. And then I lost most of my the green beans over here. This whole section right here, that one's not going to make it. Again, I'm going to try to hill those, see what's possible. I lost some zucchini yesterday. I pulled those out. Here's another example of how they dig up things. Yesterday I had my drip line was thrown like 3 feet away from where it was. That's another thing that tells me it's a 4-legged critter. Other animals aren't going to dig so severely and fling things like that. So I still don't quite know yet. Over here it's mostly just disturbed. You can see where they've just been digging and pulled up all the mulch, but the plants themselves look undisturbed, so praise the Lord for that. It looks like we might still get some good zucchini rampicante. The issue I'm dealing with is I don't know how to prevent this. So last night, like I said, this happened yesterday and again today. Last night I put a line of cinnamon powder all along. I tried to create like a barrier. I did the same thing on this back fence right here. You can see some cinnamon on that wood pile. I've got cinnamon sprinkled all around the barrier of the fence. Just hoping that maybe I could try to get them away with a really strong scent, but that didn't work. So tonight what we're going to do is try to get up a trail cam and figure out what we're dealing with. So my red onions, they only dug up a few of those. But I had a tomato here that's completely gone. Like it's not even here. I don't even know where it was. They either flung it so far that I haven't been able to find it, or they ran off with it. But you can see they're just digging in this dirt. You can see down here, see all that bare dirt, that was all mulched. But praise the Lord, the actual plants right here are not touched. Let me go sit down and let's have a little chat. Okay, y'all, let's chat about resiliency in the garden and just in life. I mean, just as in life when things don't go as planned, and of course, you know, they don't always go as planned, we can either sit and pout and sulk, throw in the towel, or we can put our big girl britches on and do something about it and just make the best of a bad situation. So I'm going to do what I can to still use those onions. I think I mentioned in that previous clip, even though they're small. So normally I would allow those onions to get as big as possible, go to the full harvest time, and I would cure them outside in a warm, dry place kind of in the sun for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then I would braid them and hang them in my pantry and use them throughout the year. Because they are so small, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to bother shoe fly. I'm not going to bother curing them and going through that whole process. I'm just going to put them on my shelf, and I'm going to plan on doing a sweet onion relish pretty soon, like within the next 2 weeks. And that's fine because sweet onion relish has to be, please don't sting me, a bee type thing just landed on my knee. Don't sting me, please. Go. Okay. Sweet onion relish has to be minced up anyway, chopped up real small anyway, so those little onions will be good for that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all those onions. I have a decision to make on whether or not to pull my red onions. The issue that I'm dealing with is I don't have any way of stopping this. It feels like, you know, it's completely out of my control. Like I'm going to wake up in the morning, tomorrow morning, and come out and something else is going to be devastated. And the next morning, some other bed is going to be messed up. So my next steps are I'm just going to set up a trail camera, see what we can find, and go from there. But other than that, there's really nothing I can do about it. And that is really hard to swallow. But in reality, there is a whole lot of areas in life that we have no control over. And if you're a person of faith, you are really, there's a peace and a rest that comes with not being in control of everything, of knowing that someone far greater, far more sovereign, far more loving and perfect is in control. I know it's probably silly to get emotional about this, but I've just poured a lot of hard work into this, but at the same time, feeding my family is, yes, that's my job. It's one of my responsibilities. It's something I find joy in. But ultimately, who takes care of my family? God does. And I trust Him to supply our needs in other ways. So, plan B for not only the onions, but like I said, I have no way of stopping this. It just seems like it's going to go. Yesterday, it was the trellis tunnels. It was the green beans and cucumbers, wipe those out. You know, this morning it was onions, and it just feels like next day it's going to be something else. So I want to talk about plan B and plan C and plan D and what we can do to still move on with our harvest in our, well, not my harvest, but move on with our preservation projects and still get something good to put on the shelves for our families. In Food Prep Guide, our book, if you haven't checked that out, I'll link it in the description box below, but we go into depth about how and where to find alternative means of food at cheap prices, in bulk goods at cheap prices, without having to still just go buy it at the store and pay full price for it. And that's what Plan B is. When something like this happens, I'm just going to go down to my local Amish farm, or I'm going to go down to Miss Betty a few neighborhoods down and talk with her and see what she has. Or I'm going to go to a farm stand over in the next county and see what they have and haggle and make a deal there. And I'm just going to purchase what I need at the absolute cheapest price possible, which is largely based on timing. Understanding when crops are ready to be harvested in your area will give you an idea of your perfect timing to get it at the cheapest price possible when farmers are needing to move supply and get things off their shelves in preparation for the next round of crops. And so that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray. Obviously, first and foremost, this bee does not want to leave me alone, but so far it hasn't stung me. Please don't sting me. Go away. I don't want to hurt you. Go away, little guy. Go find a flower. I'm not a flower. I'm not a flower. Do not have any pollen for you. Go. So I am going to be praying. I already have been, and I'm going to trust the Lord to either protect what's left or allow me to catch the critter live on camera. I'm going to be staking out tonight with my little camera in my living room, and I'm going to be watching that thing, watching for movement. It's probably going to be late night. I'm probably going to be staying up late and try to catch this thing live, so I'm going to be praying about that. And I'm also going to be praying that the Lord just provides a budget-friendly way for me to still buy what I need to make our preservation projects, to be able to make those meals that I have planned throughout the year, so that I don't have to spend that money at the grocery store. So the realities of gardening are just that things don't always go as planned. I think this is why our great-grandparents and generations before them grew a year's supply of certain crops, but I know from speaking to people that actually, we say a year's supply is just like a goal to work towards, just like a good round number, but actually a lot of our ancestors would focus on growing like a bumper crop of one or two things so that they could line those shelves for 2 years, because they might next harvest season, it might not rain, they might have a drought and lose their whole crop of corn, or they might have critter problems and lose their whole crop of onions. So putting up food on the shelves is not about stocking up and for the zombie apocalypse or whatever people are saying. It's about protecting yourself against future unknowns and just preparing for life. Life happens. Plans don't go according to plan, and we have to pivot. And that's something that a garden has taught me, is resiliency. When something doesn't go as planned, I'm gonna probably cry for a few minutes. I'm probably gonna feel like woe is me for a few minutes, but then I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna brush myself off, put my big girl panties on, and try to do plan B. So that's just a little chat about the realities of garden. It's more than just putting a seed into the ground and watching it grow. There's going to be pests, there's going to be water issues, there's going to be critters, there's going to be disease and mildew, but we just learn how to address those things when they come up, and move on and move forward and better ourselves. And when things like this happen, it is just another little bit of information in our toolbox of knowledge that allows us to grow and succeed in this area again next year. So I'm hoping that I will be able to find this critter. I will then research how to protect against this critter and keep this critter out. Fence is a number one thing, but I have a fence around my garden. I have a good fence around my garden. The one behind me, we haven't extended it up higher, which we have in other places, but we just ran out of fencing, so this is probably where it's getting in. I have walked the perimeter of my fence multiple times. There are no holes. There are no holes, there are no gaps where the fence meets the ground, so it seems like they have to be climbing over. I don't think an armadillo is going to be doing that, so my first guess is raccoons. I don't think it's chickens. We do have free-range chickens, but that rooting tells me that it's not chickens. Now the scratching looks like chickens. They scratch and fling dirt, searching for grubs and worms and insects and stuff, but that rooting tells me it is something else, and my bet is raccoons. But I will be researching that as soon as I identify what is going on here, and whatever information I learn, I'm going to come and share it with y'all, so that hopefully, if this happens to anyone else out there, hopefully I can provide some sort of information to help you protect against that critter in the future, so that we can reap the fruit of our labor eventually. Okay guys, that's it for this one. We'll see you on the next video. Bye. Hey friends, so my husband is home and we are getting ready to try to get this thing. We're going to be setting up a trail cam, and we're going to be setting a trap. My children I'll flip the camera around in a minute, they're kind of working on the traps. They just learned how to set them. and they're loving it now. They all want to be trappers. But we have, let me flip you around. Here is the primary area where the critter has been tearing up, and then here's the onion row that got messed up by it. And we have a post right behind me where we're going to be putting the camera. Here are the kiddos playing with the traps, getting those. This is a live trap. It's not going to hurt the animal. It's going to allow us to relocate it far, far away in a safe environment. And it's not going to smack their little fingers or anything like that. They're just learning how to set that up. But here is the trail cam. We're going to hopefully, my husband's pulling up the picture, and we're going to hopefully be able to see hopefully this whole side of the garden over here. So hopefully this whole area we'll be able to see, but we're gonna figure that out. We did some research this afternoon, and judging by the circular divots, we're all kind of thinking that it's an armadillo. And armadillos are nocturnal, so this is definitely happening at night. And the fact that they aren't going after the plants themselves is also indicative of an armadillo. And the fact that they are flinging the dirt, but also making divots throughout the garden is also indicative of an armadillo, because they feed off of roly-polies and other types of insects that are in the dirt. So they don't really care anything about the plants. It's the insects in the dirt that they're going after. So I am getting ready to set up this armadillo trap. Well, critter trap. I don't know if it's an armadillo, but I've been reading based on all the signs, and I really am banking on the fact that this is an armadillo. And I've been then researching how to bait armadillos. They like grubs and insects, so it's really hard to bait them, and they don't go into traps very easily, but they are almost blind, and they can easily be funneled into something. If they bump up against an object, they kind of turn to avoid that object and then just keep going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to place this trap kind of towards the end of this destroyed onion row. And since this seems to be one of its favorite spots, I'm going to make it even better for it by watering the soil down really well. Armadillos love wet soil because it's softer to dig through. And that's probably why they've been coming into the garden or attracted to the garden, because this is wet soil versus the land around us. It hasn't rained here in 3 weeks. So I'm going to wet the soil, put this trap down here, and then I'm going to take these 2 planks and try to create just a funnel to make it go into the cage, and we'll see. And I'm going to get the trail camera, reposition it kind of over here somewhere, and we'll see what we can get. I'll go ahead and throw a bunch of dirt into the trap so that when it walks into the trap, it doesn't feel those metal bars beneath its feet. All it feels is dirt. I have the safety set on this trap so it's not going to snap on me, but even if it did, this is a no harm trap. So the door would just shut. It wouldn't hurt. Not sure how I'm going to set these boards up. Looking around, seeing what I can use. Not sure. Looks like I can just put some kind of object. Maybe this pot might work good. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Look at it from this angle. Okay, looks good. Gonna wet the soil down really well. Onion. Okay, that wet soil should be enough to kind of lure it in a little bit, and we've got this funnel action going on. I'll bring you up close in just a second. I'm gonna go get the trail cam and try to find a good spot over here for it, and I think I'll be done. We'll see. We have our trap with the funnel going into it, and then we have the trail cam right there. On that post, I ran into the issue of the trail cam strap won't tie around something as thin as a T-post, so I got 2 boards and kind of stacked them up together to get some width for the trail cam strap. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 and point number 3 is my husband and I are going to try to stay up as late as we can and come outside every 30 minutes or so with some flashlights and see if we can't get this thing tonight. The issue I'm running into, besides all of the digging and ripping up plants that it's doing, is I'm not watering either, because that attracts armadillos, and I just feel like the watering is just gonna increase the chances of it flinging my plants and uprooting my plants. So that's an issue too, but obviously I can't go much longer without watering, so I'm gonna pray and we will show you what happens next. Okay, y'all, it is day 4 of this critter saga. There was more soil and mulch disturbance today, but no more uprooted plants. So we were doing a garden walk and checking the barriers and the fences really well, and look what we found. We found this area of the fence that has some bare dirt on both sides. If you look carefully, I spy a paw print. So the trellis tunnel has seemed to be this thing's favorite. We're going to call it an armadillo because I really think that's what it is. And remember, we learned the other day that the way to trap an armadillo is to funnel it. They're half blind and they can't hardly see. When they bump into something, they just kind of reposition themselves and keep on going, so a funnel works well. So I'm thinking the garden creates a natural funnel. You see this row of plants right here is on this trellis, and then I've got this row of cinder blocks here. So I am going to put the trap over right about here and face it this direction, because I think it's entering here. The only problem is, what if it goes straight and around and completely bypassing the trap? So I don't know. We'll see. We do have a smaller trap that's not technically the size of an adult armadillo, but that's all we have. So I think I'm probably just going to go ahead and use that smaller trap. Maybe it's a small armadillo and plug up both of these ends right here. I was setting up the trail cam right there, and we're going to focus on this section of the garden tonight, and we will update you on what happens next. Good morning. It is 2:42 in the morning, and it looks like our little critter is out in the garden at the moment, according to the trail camera. So we're about to go out there and try to catch it, see how it goes. Nothing. He outsmarts us again. Back to sleep. I've got another alarm set for 4 a.m. We'll see. Hey friends, I am in the garden and wanted to give y'all an update about what's going on with the critter. So we fixed that patch in the fence where we saw the paw print, and we didn't have any activity for 3 days, and we thought, okay, we are free in the clear. This is where it was getting in. We blocked it. We're good now. We had a good heavy rain after those 3 days, and woo, that's a big old caterpillar. Look at this thing. Sorry, got distracted. So anyway, after that heavy rain, it came back and it only uprooted 1 tomato plant, but it did the most damage to the mulch and dirt that we've had since the beginning. But only 1 tomato plant was uprooted, and that's been our prayer, is that even though this thing is coming in, Lord, please help us to get it, but please protect the plants in the process. And the Lord has been gracious to do that for us. So we started looking around at other areas of where this thing could be getting in, and we think it's getting in right over here. You see how this fence is bowed down like this? So here, the fence goes all the way up here,
and then it swoops down right there, like something has been pulling on it and like pulling it down with its weight. I did not realize that armadillos climbed, but apparently when they're desperate for food, they absolutely will climb. Not really high heights, but they will climb, and that's only what, 3-4 feet. So what we did was we realized we're gonna have to have a much lower level, like put the trail cam down lower so that we could get an idea of which direction it was coming from. We weren't able to see the trail cam. We weren't able to see the armadillo when it was way up here or over there. So we've got 2 stacked 5-gallon buckets and that has been fantastic. We caught it on camera 2 nights ago. I'm gonna show you that picture. So as you can see, it is an armadillo. Our suspicions were correct, and we have tried to trap it with a no harm live trap, and that's just not working out. So our new game plan is to use the trail cam. I am setting alarms at all throughout the night to wake up, check the trail cam, and try to come out here and, you know, try to catch it in the action. In fact, I did that last night. We saw it on the trail cam. We got up at like 2:30. I'm going to insert that clip right here. So we did not get out here in time. So we're just gonna keep trying, and we're gonna come out and just try to catch it live and get rid of it, get it out of the garden, relocate it, do something to get rid of it. Okay, I wanted to show you, hi Romy. I wanted to show you the damage, and so that you can familiarize yourself with what armadillo signs look like in case they ever come to your garden. And hopefully you can use some of these tips to try to get rid of it and get it gone. Here we are in the tomato bed, and you can see all of these divots. They're getting really close to the plants and just pulling the mulch out from away from the plants and digging its little snout down into these little, making all these little pockets and divots all throughout the garden. Here's this one over here, this row. It is getting really close to damaging those tomato plants, but so far, there's the trap. So far, only 1 tomato plant has been damaged, and I think it might reroot. It came in through here again. Since our last update, I had several of these green beans that I did not think would make it, but I hilled them up very high, and they seem to be taking off again. So that is awesome. I really enjoyed digging under here. Look at all that. I need to, you can see the root ball of that cucumber plant. There's the root ball right there. So I need to get in here and throw some dirt over that and get that covered up. That doesn't need to be exposed like that. And look at this. Yesterday, it flung my drip line right here. It flung that like 2 feet from its place. It really seems to be liking this trellis right here. You can see how all that mulch is just pulled away from the dirt. Take you over here to the other tomato trellis. It still likes to be digging where all the onions were. I did harvest those. It does still seem to like to be digging here. Look at this one over here. Almost looks like he bedded down right there. And he flung my boards off of my kale and cabbage. He got into the cabbage real good, dug up around those, but the actual cabbage plants are fine. See his little snout marks there. He keeps coming through here and pulling up my cardboard. Look at all this. Look at all that. He did uproot my marigold. Rip marigold. And then he just came through here and just, this cardboard was all flat and completely covered with mulch, and he just got through there and had a field day with that. Potato patch seems almost undisturbed. He keeps checking out this little patch right here. You see a little divot right there, a little bit of divot over there, but other than that, he's leaving the potato patch alone. So that's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna try again tonight, stay awake, try to catch this thing, and I will update you if anything happens. Okay, we're back in real time now. It's the first week of October, and let me show you the state of the garden, and then I will explain a little bit more about how we're changing things moving forward. Okay, I'm standing at the door of the garden here, and I just want to show y'all that the garden is more a garden of weeds than anything else. This is the okra bed right here, and the weeds are almost as tall as the okra. My chives and parsley and all of that are completely taken over. That used to be a pepper bed, and it's just a bunch of weeds. These were my brassica beds over here. Again, weeds, potato patch, totally gone, covered, and everything else. So that used to be a bunch of walkways. I had some container beds over there. It's just pretty much overtaken with weeds, and that might seem a little strange that I would let all of this happen just because of Mr. Armadillo, but let me sit down, grab a chair, and let's chat about it. Okay, so why did I let Mr. Armadillo get the better of me? That's a good question, but it is more than just the armadillo that has led to these changes. So I've alluded to these big changes enough. Let's just go ahead and tell you what's going on. So we are completely redoing our garden next year. We are switching to weed fabric, and as such, we need to redesign the garden and expand the garden, which I'll explain in just a second. But that's basically what we're doing now. We are switching completely from a back to Eden style garden to weed fabric, which it's still going to be a no-till style of gardening. We're still not going to be tilling. It's still going to be a ground cover. Weed fabric is a ground cover. It's just not a living ground cover. And it's just, it's not a living ground cover. But we feel it's what's going to work best for us from this point forward. I started researching this about 3 months ago, and I'll probably continue researching it through the off season, through the winter, and make a final decision in the spring. So I do reserve my right to change my mind, but the more and more I look into it, the more I feel like this is going to be the next step for us. So once I realized that I couldn't upturn the soil or pull weeds, hoe my rows or anything like that because that would just bring in the armadillo and he would just start tearing things up, I stopped weeding completely, which is resulted in what you just saw. But after, it only took about 3 weeks before the weeds got so out of control that I could no longer even try to keep up with them. I was still trying to keep up with them. My husband was sweet, and he would come in here and weed eat for me because I couldn't, like I said, pull up the weeds from the roots and expose the dirt, but he was able to weed eat. And but it's just, even that, it just got out of control very quickly. And I realized two things. Number one was I could no longer come into the garden without being concerned about ticks. We live in tick country, and I have a history of Lyme disease, and the garden became, it lost its joy for me. I lost motivation. It's like every time I would come into the garden, I would feel the weeds up to almost my hips, and I would just be like, I'm just going to be covered in ticks. And, paranoia set in, fear, whatever you want to call it, set in, of ticks being all over me. And it just got to the point where I just pretty much stayed out of the garden. I came in to harvest a few things, and I came in to prep my trellises for next year, but that's about it. So the weeds growing up so quickly was another factor of us deciding to switch to the weed fabric. But the last point, which really put us over the edge as far as making this decision, is we preserved a lot of food this year, praise the Lord, despite the armadillo, and yet we still are not meeting our goals of growing a year's supply of our food, except for staples like rice and beans and pasta and baking supplies. But other than those groups, we want to grow everything else. And even though this was our biggest preservation year thus far, it gets bigger and bigger each year, we are still not at the point where we can grow a year's supply of food for our family in this footprint. So expansion is the only answer to that, right? We have to expand, we have to make the garden larger, grow more food to meet those goals. Well, when I saw the weed pressure that we were dealing with after just 2 to 3 weeks of not tending to the garden because of the armadillo, I realized that I'm not going to be able to expand the garden and still be able to maintain it. I am the primary gardener in our family, and we do have children who love to help, and they're getting older, so they're going to be even more of a help moving forward. But even then, it's just expanding the garden to more than it is now felt like more than what I can physically handle and keep up with just because of time. You know, there's only 24 hours in a day, and a lot of those 24 hours have to go to other things. So the only way that I can see to expand the garden to grow a year's supply for our family is if I'm not fighting the weed pressure and the animal pressure. And the answer to that is weed fabric. With weed fabric, I can eliminate the weed pressure, the constantly fighting against those, keep it minimal, keep it to the point where me and my children can easily stay on top of the weeds. But also it's covering the soil with that weed fabric layer, so Mr. Armadillo and his buddies and raccoons and anything else that wants to come in isn't going to have anything, it's not going to be as much of a draw for them. But not only that, we're going to be able to redo the fence. We're actually looking into the same electrical fence that's on our chicken coop, which is a little solar battery powered, and it is easily movable and easily expandable. You can add to it as you need to throughout the years, and we've already had ours for the chickens for several years now and love it. We know it's durable, we know it works, so we're actually looking into fencing in the garden that way, which of course would keep out the armadillos and raccoons and anything like that. So yes, Mr. Armadillo started this ball rolling, but it was a lot more went into that decision than just the armadillo. I'm excited to see how the garden turns out, how this new expansion project turns out. We have a lot of planning and a lot of work ahead of us, but Lord willing, we will be able to film that and just show y'all the transition from in-ground back to Eden style beds to it's still going to be in-ground, but switching over to a completely 100% weed fabric covered garden. And we will be able to share tips along the way and pros and cons, tell you what we love about it, tell you what we hate about it, and hopefully it'll be another option that we can add to our toolbox of being able to grow food with as little time and stress as possible. Okay, y'all, we will see y'all next time. Bye. Y'all aren't gonna believe this. I can't believe this. I'm moving these kiddie pools with the grow bags and moving these old feed bags, and look what I found. What do y'all think that looks like? An armadillo burrow? You kidding me? My husband just came up and pinched me. I never even imagined that this armadillo could actually be living inside the garden. No wonder we couldn't find where it was getting in. It wasn't breaching a fence. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. We're about to try to, drown it out some way, force it out. See what happens next.